And we're live, guys. Welcome to our first Tuesday fireside chat with Jack Spirko, John Willis. I'm Nicole Sauce. Let's start by just, Jack, tell us who you are and what you do and why you're here.
I am Jack Spirko. I am the host of the Survival Podcast, running 14 years now. We have won Podcast of the Year twice, and we have about 3,300 episodes right now. And if people want to learn more, they can go to tspc.co. And I'm here because y'all asked, and I think y'all are awesome, and I want to be part of what you're doing.
Awesome. John Willis, for the people who are not on your channel, do the same.
I make nylon tactical gear. I've done that for 35 years. We build gear for guys that kill bad guys all around the world. Started a Facebook page years ago, said things that people wouldn't say, just kind of said what I wanted to say. And a lot of people said, man, I wish I could do that. And I said, well, you can, you just can't do it where you work. So it kind of turned into that. And I've always been kind of a crazy survivalist, right? Doomsday preppers came out and shopped us, and we got all these TV shows want to do this stuff, but they don't want to do it real. So we just never did any of that stuff. And just through social media, I've been able to show what we do. And I think that if people are in a position where they give advice, there should be evidence of proof that they're doing what they give advice on.
Awesome. Well, I'm Nicole Sauce from the Living Free in Tennessee podcast and Hollow Roast Coffee, hollowroast.com. And I came to this world because I was frustrated with working in libertarian public policy, changing little things and losing big things. So I transitioned out and decided to follow a different passion, which was, it started with people calling me in the middle of canning and asking me questions about canning. And so I started this podcast about just basic homestead things. It's turned into a lifestyle design podcast, like most podcasts have these days. And then we share a lot of information about building small business, as well as my experiences on my little homestead. I also like to share mistakes so you know what it's really like. So today we're here to have sort of a State of the Union talk, because I heard there was a State of the Union talk yesterday, wasn't there?
I have no idea.
But first,
yesterday? I thought it was. Did it happen? Did I miss it?
I know. Huh?
I thought it was today.
Oh, no, it is today. It's Tuesday. Sorry.
Okay.
My head
All right.
Right now. So the State of the Union tonight, we're doing the State of the Union before the State of the Union, and it's Fat Tuesday. So Fat Tuesday at my house means we have crepes. Okay. And crepes are great because you can have savory crepes or you can have sweet crepes. And I'm going to actually eat wheat flour in my crepes. I'm not even doing like keto almond flour crepes. But then that's the predecessor to Lent, where some people give things up. So are you guys giving anything up for Lent?
No. I used to, though. I was raised Ukrainian Catholic, which I'm sure we'll get into Ukraine stuff today at some point. And it was a very big deal. It's kind of like you take Eastern Orthodoxy and Catholicism and shove it together, and you get all of everything that makes you miserable in one faith. And so we took Lent very seriously, and that meant no meat on Fridays during Lent at all, period, no matter what else you gave up. It's okay to eat lobster somehow, but no meat, whatever. But for Fat Tuesday, which we didn't call Fat Tuesday, it's just beginning before Lent, we have your last blowout. My grandmother used to make donuts and like deep fried, plain cake, fresh out of the fryer donuts. It's like the best thing she ever made. She only made them once a year, though. It was only for Fat Tuesday.
Awesome. John, any Fat Tuesday stories, or you just like, screw that?
I like donuts.
He does like donuts. In fact, Jack, do you have that recipe? That's what we need to do, is get Jack
no idea
compound, and we need to make the donuts.
That'd be awesome.
I was a dead broke teenager hustling back then. There's so many things I wish I would have learned from my grandmother that I didn't about cooking. As long as it was like baking and stuff like that. The woman destroyed meat, old country mentality. Meat was going to kill you if you didn't cook it. So, I mean, she would literally boil a steak. I mean, it was, but like the halupkis and halishkis and I wish I knew how to make that stuff today. I don't want to eat it all the time, but it'd be nice to once in a while be able to do it. So young people out there still have your elders around, man. Learn that stuff before they're gone.
So I get a lot of emails this time of year about people giving up coffee for Lent, and they send me an apology in advance. And I just say whatever, but guys, it's a good time to start buying coffee because I have a little more time to roast as people give up their coffee for Lent. No, I don't give anything up for Lent either, just because I try to design my life where I have balance. Sometimes I'm more successful at that than other times. Okay, We've already got a couple questions in. If you have questions you want us to see, I see a couple people are already trained on this. Put them in all caps. I said that in the comments as well. And I guess we're chomping at the bit over this Ukraine thing, aren't we? I've got 2 Ukraine-looking sorts of questions. So this is one where Jack and I were texting about Ukraine this morning, and he asked me, did you know? And there was some example of something that happened in the Ukraine. And I wrote back, no, I didn't know. That's why I haven't done a podcast episode on what's going on in Ukraine and what my opinion is. My podcast episode has focused on how should we react when we're at war, because we're always at war. It seems like we're always at war with somebody, which means this isn't very different than that, in my opinion. And I then allocated myself 2 hours over the weekend to learn about it and only spent 1 hour looking into it. So we'll start with the question here. What is it? Thoughts on the DOJ? Well, before we do that, Jack, can you give us an overview of Ukraine?
Oh, God. It won't be an overview. It'll just be a couple examples of, because an overview would take hours.
Yes.
It's just what you're seeing on TV is bullshit. And a whole bunch of the propaganda that's come out already has already been proven lies. You got the supposed, I don't know, she was like a Miss Ukrainian or something like that was fighting the war, and it turned out she was holding an airsoft gun. We've had pictures of things supposedly happening actually from video games, pictures that are from 3 or 4 years ago. There's the whole thing with the sailors that were on the island. There was 14 of them. They were told to surrender to Russian forces, and they told them to fuck off, and then they all got killed, and that didn't happen. So those are just some examples, but there's a lot at play here. And when I say this, I've been called all types of terrible names involving Putin and servicing him in some awful way or something. And like, I'm not pro Putin and I'm not pro Zelensky. I'm pro truth. And the truth is murky, but here's a couple examples that people don't understand what's going on. The region of with the 2 provinces, and now they're escaping me right now, the names of them, but they've been offered autonomy going back to what's called the Minsk agreements years ago. And there's supposed to be a truce between them. And the people that live there have been shelled on an almost daily basis for years now after that agreement, in violation of that agreement. They are mostly ethnically Russians that live in that province. And if you look at the 2 parties in Ukraine, we think Democrat and Republican, they're more like pro-Ukraine national and pro-Russia. There's your 2 parties. And there's a line right down the middle where there's an even split. And there's a huge majority of people that are pro-Russian on East Ukraine, and a huge majority that are pro-Ukraine nationalism on West Ukraine. And this has just been going on, and it's a civil war. And we've been led to believe this is all about Russia. It's all about Russia. Well, Russia's involved, but it's an internal conflict that Russia's now inserted itself into. And there's a ton of stuff going on that people just they'll never tell you. When Russia took over Crimea in 2014, which they did without firing a shot, by the way. I'm not saying good or bad. It's just the facts. They didn't roll in with tanks and take it over like they're invading Ukraine right now. They went in as quote unquote peacekeepers. There was a referendum, and it was something like 94% of Crimeans voted to become part of Russia. And it was as peaceful as that kind of thing could happen. It was a peaceful secession, basically. Well, a consequence of that was Crimea is seen as this beautiful, fertile place. The coast is great. The rest of it's like what they call high steppe. It's like borderline desert. And there's canals that come from the north, out of Ukraine into Crimea. And after the secession, annexation, call it what you want, instead of the Ukrainians saying, hey, we would like to have some kind of reasonable relationship with Crimea still, and saying, hey, like your water's not free, we'll come up with some sort of market rate or something to provide this water coming out of our reserves. They poured concrete in the irrigation canals and cut off Crimea's water. They're on water rationing in the capital city of Crimea right now. Right. And so there's enough blame to go in all directions in this. And my summation is there's no angels in this. And there's no one bad guy. And we live in this fantasy world. When I was a child, I used to play with childish things. And as an adult, you have to put the childish things away. The childish thing is what you and I and John grew up with, right? Where we had all the movies and TV shows in the 70s and 80s. And there's always a clear-cut good guy and a bad guy. And the good guy always wins. And so we're conditioned in a war to say, well, who's the bad guy? It could be the case there's 2 bad guys here. And both sides have some legitimate grief with the other side. And then the bigger gameplay here, the real thing, this is if the media wanted to tell you the truth, they would get too close to home. Instead of a war over oil, this is a war over natural gas. The strategic moves that Russia's taking in Ukraine are to cut off the gas production capacity of Ukraine so that Russia can maintain the monopoly that it has in the European market. Because without gas and oil, Russia doesn't have an economy. If you push oil under $70 a barrel, the Russian economy collapses. So our solution, of course, is to jack up the price of gas and oil well over $100 a barrel, then say we're sanctioning Russia and still buy Russia's gas and oil so it doesn't inconvenience us. So this all is just a giant fuckfest. And I think personally the best thing the world can do is stay out of it and let this is a centuries-old ethnic conflict, by the way. And so one more, and then I'll let y'all say what you want. We think of racism in the United States as like white people, black people, or Asian people and Hispanic people, like race that way. And we do that because we live in this world that is so divorced from traditional racism and ethnic, differences. It's not always racism to identify a difference, but we see every white person is the same. You go to other places in the world where people are Caucasian, they don't see things that way, right? It's just like if you went to Asia and you called a Chinese person Korean, they might get pissed off at you. If you call someone that's Ukrainian, Georgian, or Russian, they get pissed. They have different languages, different cultures, different traditions. And Ukraine, that we think of as being this defined border thing that always was, isn't. A huge piece of what is Ukraine today used to be Poland. The people that live in that region aren't exactly thrilled with that overall. The word Ukraine actually means borderland. It's a region, and it's been moved around and manipulated around. And so like Donetsk is in a place that always was Russia, but now it's Ukraine. Again, there's parts of Poland that are now in Ukraine. Crimea was never part of Ukraine until we decided it was after the Soviet Union broke up. This is another example of people that want to control the world like a chessboard, just moving borders around with no considerations for the traditions, the ethnicity, the heritage of the people that they're fucking with. And war always happens when we do that. We see it clearly in the Middle East, and we somehow think this is different. It's not. So sorry for the long answer, but that's, for an overview, that's the best I can do.
That was pretty dang good. John, do you have anything to add?
Guys keep asking me about it. I don't really, but they want to know which side you stand with, or they want your opinion on it. But why are they asking where I stand or my opinion? Because that's how they're going to side, because they watch me and they feel like they know us because they, follow our content and talk to us. And some of them we do know, but why does it matter? Like, this is the survival podcast. This is, Living Free in Tennessee. This is special operations equipment. I've never been to the Ukraine. I don't know anybody in the Ukraine. Sonny will tell you, leave Russia alone. Let Russia do what it's going to do. And if the United States get involved, there's going to be problems for people in the United States. It's going to constrict things. But maybe all the distraction that you're seeing, and the reason this is so in your face, is to cover something else up that's going on. Like, you're not hearing anything about the truckers right now. And there's not one trucker convoy. There are multiple trucker convoys that say, hey, we are not the same groups and we are headed here. Maybe it's, don't look at that. What about all the stuff that was happening with the Bidens in the Ukraine? What about all the map overlays that show U.S. interest in bioweapons labs that they just bombed the shit out of? So who knows what it is, but everybody that we're involved with is talking about this right now. No matter what happens, the dollar is worth less. Stuff that you want to buy costs more if you can even get it. So why not take that energy and focus on making more money right now? You're definitely going to need it, and you're never going to be upset that you have it in order to do other things with it. So we can war game it, but what can we can't affect it, There are things we can't affect, though, by not paying attention or putting all the energy into it.
I agree. Go ahead.
So this question relates to what my interface with the Ukraine conflict has been like on my podcast and in my network. And it's questions like these. How much minimum cash should I have at home to prepare for what's coming? And I don't know if that's what motivated this one from Echo, but the answer I have today is exactly the answer I would have had 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago. It's not different. I don't think you should go take $100,000 cash and stuff it in your mattress right now, just in case banks get turned off, shit goes south, and you got to pay for everything with cash while there's rampant inflation, right? Because if that situation were to fictionally happen, if that were to happen, your $100,000 in your mattress is not going to help you for very long. And you didn't have it to do things with that you need to do with them to make your life better. And the thing you're going to fall back in a situation that's like that are skills, knowledge, and your network. That's what saves your butt. And you may not save your butt, right? That's when things get really bad, some people don't make it. But if you're going to make it, it's because you've worked on you. And it's because you have a strong network. And it's because you've learned how to figure out how to do things. That
you have people in the prepper space right now that have these YouTube channels that just went from 50,000 to 250,000. And they did it by making 2 and 3, 4 minute videos, simply reading the news. It's just circular reporting. One guy does it and 10 guys do the same thing. So all these channels have grown. And you just had a dude come out and go, oh my God, there's going to be a run on the banks. Go take money out of the bank. Most of the people in your audience don't have money to take out of the bank. And you showed no evidence of the same guys made a video last week. Oh my God, I'm going to fill my gas can. So I'm telling you guys, go all fill your. Are your gas cans not filled already? Like where have you been all this time?
Yeah, if you take this as a motivational thing to be responsible with your prepping, and I put in the notes that we might talk about like what responsible prepping looks like versus prepping out of fear. Then by all means, make sure your preps are in order. That should be that way. You should be on a rolling basis with your deep pantry. You should be on a rolling basis with your fuel storage. I like to keep a few weeks of cash on hand so that if systems aren't working and I can't use my ATM card, I can still pay for things. But I don't feel like I need to pull all my money out of the bank and put it in crypto right now. That said, it's not bad to have some crypto from time to time, right? You know, there's a question up here about what about turning off Russian crypto exchanges? And it's way, way back here. Thoughts on the Department of Justice seizing Russian crypto exchange domains like back in 2017? I don't have thoughts on that.
Before we go there, can we go back to the original question on how much cash?
Yeah.
So I need people to start thinking about cash a little bit differently if you want to think critically. And the only reason I even go into things like what's going on in Ukraine is to teach critical thinking. Wherever people's attention is at a time, I'll use it as a way to teach how to critically analyze a complex situation. That's the only reason I do it. So cash. You have to start thinking of cash. I don't care if it's in the bank. I don't care if it's in a mattress. It has a cost. It costs you money to hold cash right now. And that number, depending on who you believe, is somewhere between 7 to 22 points a year. Let's call it 10. Let's err to the conservative side of how bad inflation is. So if I take $100,000 and put it in my mattress, what's my cost at 10% to hold it for a year? $10,000. So what you have to look at with your cash is you got to change it from, oh, I'm hoarding cash to what's my opportunity cost? The purpose of cash is so we can execute opportunities when they come around. And if we have no liquid assets and we have no cash and this great opportunity comes, all we do is sit there and look at it like my grandfather said. They looked at, food in the Depression and said, damn, that's cheap. Wish I could buy it. I don't have. So your cash you're holding comes with that opportunity cost. So the best thing to do then is you need enough cash to get through some shit short term around home. And that's going to be anywhere between a few hundred to a few $1,000s, depending on who you are. If it's me or John, it's probably at least a few $1,000s. If it's a lot of people listening, it's a few hundred because that's what they have to be able to hold. So you have to adjust that based on who you are. But that cash is emergency cash. Anything else is a cash equivalency right now comes with a very high cost, and you only do it for the purpose of opportunity. Otherwise, it should be invested in your business, in real estate, in something that's an appreciating asset, or you're literally burning money away. Would you hold $100,000 in cash in a box in your house if you knew every year somebody would come in a few times a year and take $10,000 out of it total over a year? And when you open the box on December 31st, it'd be $90,000 in it. Well, you probably wouldn't. That will change the way you look at it. That's why I'm a fan of things like Bitcoin, precious metals, real estate. Those are like my 3 places that I want to live with asset investment. And then never think that you're not making an investment when you investment into the infrastructure in your homestead. if you can create food production systems that produce, $15,000, $20,000 of food worth a year for you, and you can do that with an investment of $10,000, that's a better investment than you can make in most other things. Just like all investments, it comes with risk. You might think that's what you're doing. And all of us that have done homesteading know, like, your first systems, you fuck them up. They don't work as well as you planned, right? So go slow with that and be methodical with that. But the cash you keep on hand, that's opportunity. That's what that money's there for. It's so that when Dodge gets stupid like they did when COVID started and they dropped the price of a fucking $40,000 car to $24,000, I walked in and said, I'll take one, right? Because I wanted that. That was an ego purchase. But if I hadn't had money that I was willing to put aside for opportunity, I wouldn't have been able to do that. I would have financed it. It would have cost me $40,000 by the time I was done making payments on it.
They need to look at cash differently too. Like, where is the cash coming from? Why? I hope that all of you are in a position that you don't have to have cash. You don't have to go to the bank and pull it out and convert electronic to cash. I hope that face-to-face with clients, customers, or friends, people will pay you cash for a goods or a service, and now you have cash. You also can look at cash as, I can spend this cash a lot of times face-to-face, and there was no record of transaction for whatever I bought. So look at it like that also. And hopefully you have something coming in that you do that gives you cash without involving the bank or the IRS. The other thing, you have all these CEOs that have miraculously just stepped down from all these companies because they can't sell that stock legally. They step down, convert their stock holdings to cash. They're not holding cash, though. They're buying assets. They're buying islands. They're buying helicopters. They're buying boats. They're not keeping it in U.S. dollar. And no matter where they end up, and when the U.S. dollar crashes and it's Fed coin or whatever it is, they can liquidate that and change that to whatever currency they want because it's a valuable asset.
Yeah, the biggest place they put their money is real estate, and the reason for that is it's a shadow asset on a balance sheet that can appreciate continuously. So they can take loans against the real estate and then take loans against other real estate in the future and keep using one loan to pay off the other loan. They can pay themselves millions of dollars a year in technically income that way, but legally it's debt. So they pay no tax on it. That's when you hear like somebody made $30 million last year and paid zero taxes. That's because they didn't make $30 million. They borrowed $30 million against their own assets. We can play that game at a lower level too. We can do the same type of thing. That's what, Nicole, you do rental income property, yep. Right? That's what that is. I am building an appreciating asset with somebody else's cash flow. And then I'm turning around while I'm making money and depreciating the asset so that I'm reducing my income while I'm actually increasing my income. Mm-hmm. Right. That's like when Trump was running for president, somebody said something about him not paying taxes, and somebody made a meme, and it was Anakin and Obi-Wan. And Obi-Wan tells Anakin, Donald Trump made, so many $1 billion and didn't pay any taxes on it. And Anakin says to him, is it possible to learn this power? And the answer is yes. I just told you how to do it. That's how simple it is. And I think we're heading for a place long-term with Bitcoin where you'll be able to do the same thing with Bitcoin. It's a digital property is the best way to think of it. And so I'm all for diversification in this. Cash, yes. Silver and gold, yes. Investing in tools, your infrastructure, real property, and cryptocurrency, namely Bitcoin. I'm not a Bitcoin maximalist, but I am a shitcoin minimalist. And that's why I also like things like R and Monero, so that I can send John some cryptocurrency and we could literally say, oh, you want to know what happened? Here's a number. Go look it up on the blockchain. And it just says wah, wah. Right. Good luck figuring that shit out. I mean, we need to use all the tools that we have at our disposal. I had somebody today, I put out a video and I said, this is a permaculture technique. And they said, I thought permaculture was when you move chickens around and planted gardens behind them. I was like, that's a technique, not a discipline, right? Mm-hmm. All of these techniques are arrows in the quiver, and we need to use every fucking arrow in the quiver because our enemy will, right? They'll use all the arrows in their quiver. So we need to be very adaptive in the current situation.
That's a good point. I just had Nick Ferguson out here last week, speaking of permaculture, figuring out multiple ways the same place on my land could serve me. And that's always nice. I think if you think about cash and assets that same way, are there multiple ways it can serve me? That's good. And knowing that you have all these tools in your quiver is important. But if you just heard Jack talk about all that stuff and two things, you're like, I don't get it. Those two things go on your learn it list. Go learn about cryptocurrency if you don't quite understand how it works. And instead of going in with your heart set on cryptocurrency is bad, go ask what can it do? Instead of your heart set on this is the the feds trying to trap us, go in with what can it do and learn, because as you figure it out, you will integrate, even if it is a tool that the feds are using, you will figure out how to benefit from that because other people are. Do we want to answer this question at this point? Speaking of cryptocurrency, thoughts on DOJ seizing Russian crypto exchanges?
Let me say something on that real quick, and then I'm going to turn it over to y'all for a second. I got something I got to handle for about 2 seconds out here. Yeah. The DOJ seizing Russian crypto exchange domains. This basically is, there's a name that points to a website. When you do that, you can't get to the website by going to that name anymore. It's almost juvenile. It's so ridiculously stupid. The average cryptocurrency trader is far more technically affluent than the average person. And the average person can figure out how to drop something like an IP address into a browser. So you can shut down the domain, but that doesn't shut down the exchange. And then they're talking about doing this with Russian exchanges. So, maybe there are domain names now, they call them unstoppable domains. The domain literally lives and does its redirection on a blockchain. So it's immutable like Bitcoin. So there's a solution right there. But even the American exchanges like Coinbase and Bittrex and all just told DOJ to go fuck themselves when they said they wanted them to shut down access to all their Russian customers. And even Coinbase, who's, they're publicly traded, they're going to play ball with the FTC, et cetera. They said that's going to hurt the average Russian that has nothing to do with this. And we are not going to blanket do that. If you want somebody locked out of their account, you're going to have to give us justification for that individual, and you're going to have to name them, and you're going to have to actually say why. You're going to have to do something that forces us to do it. We're not going to do it because you asked. So I think there's like kind of much ado about nothing there. And I also think this is all revolves around the concept of SWIFT, which is one of the payment systems that they use so that like Russia can sell oil to Germany. Mm-hmm. And the word is out that the Russian thrown out of SWIFT. No, several of the European countries and several other countries in the world, they said they are going to ban Russia from SWIFT. Okay. That going to means not done yet. Number two, they said certain Russian banks. Well, what does that mean? If I'm going to ban certain Russian banks, what does that mean about other Russian banks? Or are there no other ways that countries can exchange funds with each other? Right. This is just a simplified way to do a guaranteed exchange of funds for commodities that we have. And so the idea is now Putin is going to start, spending Bitcoin or taking Bitcoin to sell oil and gas and to commit trade. I think it's more what it is it's fodder for people like the puke that is Elizabeth Warren to explain why Bitcoin is bad and why they need to regulate it more heavily. And what we have right now is we have politicians talking about regulating Bitcoin with no understanding of what they're talking about regulating or how it works. You're going to regulate something that I can access with some numbers from anywhere in the world in a peer-to-peer capacity where John and I can do business with each other. And there's literally nothing you can do about it. What they want to do is they want to regulate the on-ramps and off-ramps. And they want to be as totalitarian and tight on that as they can be. And I'm sure they're actually looking at Putin and thinking, man, what a genius. How can we do that here? What Russia wants to do is say, if a Russian wants to own Bitcoin, it has to be held in a Russian bank. And the bank holds it for you. And they probably want to run that play here. But you can pass that law. What are you going to do to make it happen? Like they literally don't understand. They keep talking about Bitcoin accounts. There's no such thing as a Bitcoin account. There's an exchange account that gives you a GUI to control your Bitcoin. But there's no such thing as a Bitcoin account. A Bitcoin is just information. It's just numbers. It's cryptography. You're trying to ban math. Now they can fuck people up to where they can't do math, but you're not going to ban math. That's not how that shit works. So I think they live in fantasy land to a degree. And all this talk is just to gin up support for their bullshit regulatory framework they want to bring in.
So the funny thing is, will cutting off Russia's banks accelerate the usage of Bitcoin? This is an opinion type of question. I don't know that it will accelerate it more than it's already accelerating. It may, I think it may do a little bit of a blip, but what I'm seeing, which is an interesting impact of this, is people in my network who haven't really understood the difference between your custodial wallet, where you control your private keys for your Bitcoin, and an exchange where the wallet there they control, which means they have control of your Bitcoin. They're starting to ask what that means and how that works. So I think it's a good result of all this talk going on, that people are starting to dig down and try to understand how cryptocurrency works. Any thoughts on that, John?
Well, no.
Okay.
I mean, it doesn't matter what I think Bitcoin's going to do, because I'm a dude standing in a garage right here, right? I buy Bitcoin because I heard Jack talk about Bitcoin, and I believe that Jack is smart enough with his money, probably better so than I am, that I'm going to do some of what Jack does with his money. But what you should look at is, what does the world and the people buying Bitcoin think? Is Bitcoin prices up right now, or is it down? And it's traveling up, right? I know that had I put money in Bitcoin 2 years ago, I would have a ton more money than I have right now. I always get these dudes that are like, but what backs it? Well, what backs your US dollar other than the belief in the dollar, right? I don't have time to try to change people's minds or convert them. People ask what I do. I tell them what I do. I have proof of what I do. But I'm not going to, because usually the dude that's wanting to argue with you about this and wants you to change his mind, he doesn't have any fucking money to buy Bitcoin anyways.
Hey, Survival Tips, thanks for liking and sharing this with your followers. Really appreciate that. Let's get more people on this feed. We're up to about 212. I'd like to see that top 300 if we can get it up there.
Should be able to, huh?
But there's no reason not to.
Let's hit the what backs it question with the most simple answer I can give you. Security backs it. The fact that one Bitcoin is one Bitcoin. It's fungible. It's tradable 24/7, 365 around the world. It's the most liquid asset that's ever existed, and it can't be counterfeited. If I send Nicole 0.1 Bitcoins, not only is she going to be very happy, but she can rest assured that 0.1 Bitcoin, that tokenized piece of a Bitcoin, is 100% legitimate, and it will always be that, even if she breaks it up into smaller pieces and sends it somewhere else. And the reason that's the case is there's a financial incentive to do what we call mining, but mining isn't just getting new Bitcoin, it's actually verifying transactions. So all this talk about boiling the oceans and all this energy, all those computers all around the world, all those ASICs spinning all day long, all the time, they exist for one purpose: the security of the Bitcoin network. What backs Bitcoin? The security of the Bitcoin network. It's the value of the network. And the network that is Bitcoin is the most successful thing that humans have ever done, measured by dollars technologically, in the history of the world. It has a market cap that exceeds the largest corporations in the world. It took 30 years to get there, and it did it in 10. That's what backs it. The fact that I can do business with John, and we can both know we're dealing with the exact same Bitcoin, and that it's going to be able to go forward. The fact that some guy that came to this country that's busting his fucking ass every day to feed his family in El Salvador can save, hundreds of dollars a month in remittance fees to actually support his family back in El Salvador. I know some people listening to this are against that, but hey, Western Union has no problem making money off that guy, right? And before you think that, you should maybe meet some of these people that they come here, they go 8 years without seeing their family, and they live in shit to support their family, and realize how dedicated those people are, right? And you basically have a young computer hacker like Jack Mallers at Strike that put together a product that's taking down a multi-billion-dollar, 100-year-old corporation in Western Union. And what's the value? There's the fucking value. And if I need to say more than that, like John said, first of all, if I have to explain more than that to somebody, they don't have any fucking money anyway, right? And two, you're not going to understand, because it's not that you can't understand, so you don't want to. Maybe Peter Schiff is your gold daddy or something, I don't know.
I just think sometimes people get stuck in a mindset of they're not ready. It's kind of like when kids are learning, you can talk to them all day long about how to do an oil change. And if they're not ready to conceptually understand what an oil change is, it's like whoop over their head. But the day they're ready to do the oil change, suddenly they can understand what you're saying about the oil change. And we work that way our whole lives. Okay, now for something completely different. You three rock. Keep up the good work. Hey, Derek, hit that like button. What's the best way to start a small garden? The
Do
best
it.
way. Do it.
Yeah.
Do it.
It's not just do it.
There's a lot of different techniques out there. It's not a technique I'm in love with, but like if you really feel like you need your hand held for your first garden, square foot gardening, I can't remember the guy that wrote it, but square foot gardening is like that's a good entry level point. I think it oversimplifies things to the point of not all of the allocation of space really works out the way that, it does in the book, but it will get you going. It'll get you on the track. But I mean, just think about the fact that all of our grandparents, they just dug up a bed, planted shit in it, made sure it got enough water, threw some composted manure on it, and they fed their families with that. Like, it is not the mysterious thing that people make it out to be. And it is really not something that you can totally learn without actually doing it, in my opinion.
It's your patriotic duty as a U.S. citizen to keep 3 chickens, right? That was, our government put that out to everybody. You were supposed to cut up victory gardens. You were supposed to cut up 4 by 8 feet of your front yard and plant a garden. Like, just go to Walmart, buy the cheapest soil you can get, go get you some rabbits and take the rabbit shit and put it in the soil. Or for your first garden, just to start out with, get some damn Miracle-Gro. Just use Miracle-Gro. I know that everybody's against chemicals. I don't use any chemicals here hardly at all anymore. But when you start and you see what you can do, I used to grow gardens. We grew tons and tons of stuff last year. But I would go out and go, okay, I'm going to have a noodle bowl. So here's some bok choy, and here's some, this, and here's some, all these things. And I would just clip them. But we ate like 10% of all the shit we grew. So we fed it all back to the rabbits and to the chickens. And then we started canning. And now we have tons of stuff canned up. And we're running 2-3 pressure canners at a time. Like, just the biggest thing is just do it. Don't get caught in a Facebook group for 2 hours sitting on the toilet and your ass is numb when you could have literally planted enough food that you could feed you and your neighbors in that 2 hours of time.
Yeah, and I agree with John on the Miracle-Gro thing. I mean, if you go get a big ass bag of 10-10-10 fertilizer, I'm not going to do it at this point in my life. But if you're doing your first garden, you have no idea what the fuck you're doing, and that grows you food, that food will be 100 times more nutritious than the food you buy in the supermarket, even if you buy organic food. It will be, because it will be closer to its living essence when you consume it. In other words, you're going to cut it and you're going to fucking eat it. You're not going to flash freeze it like Bird's Eye, haul it across the country, stick it in a freezer section for 6 months before somebody buys it. That alone is going to make it a better quality thing. And then you're going to learn the skill when you start gardening. So starting your own seeds and for your plants you're going to set out for the stuff you can't direct sow, that's a skill. Making compost, that's a skill. Building a garden bed, that's a skill. Tending the garden, that's a skill, right? Harvesting, that's a skill. Preserving your food, that's 6 skills. And I'm probably leaving some shit out, like how much to irrigate, your basic management. There's 7, right? So you got 7 skills that you're working on developing in that first year. If you can shortcut that, you can all this shit where it's like, well, it's really hard to convert from conventional to non-conventional. As long as you're not spraying chemicals and poisons, you just simply stop using that fertilizer and start building tilth into your soil. And the one thing that people have going for them they don't realize, assuming you don't live somewhere like I do on top of a rock, if you live somewhere with soil that already exists and you dig a bed in it, it will probably perform very well in its first year because there's probably a lot of fertility there. And you're going to spend more time developing soil structure than soil nutrient in that soil. Maybe there's a lot of clay in it and things like that. And you can look into lasagna gardening or, throw down cardboard and throw mulch on top of it and then plant your garden in the spring. Like, you can do worse than that. But do it. Just fucking do it.
Somebody asked if you can use electric pressure canners for canning. Yes, I run 2 of them. I run the Prestos. We run them on the same outlet in the kitchen. So probably, a 20 amp or 15 amp circuit in there. We run them. We never throw it. They do everything for you. We literally set them and walk. I've got the big All-Americans.
Yep.
These Presto things are so easy.
This is what we use too. I had a huge All-American. And when I got the electric canner, I don't generally do huge batches. So being able to do 4 quarts in one of those, that's about as much as I'm going to do in one go anyway. I bartered my freaking All-American because I didn't use it anymore. And I mean, there's a tip too. If you have some shit you don't use, and you can convert it to something you do use, yeah, you can get more money for it right now because go price one because the raw materials cost more. This shit, the inflation shit's not going away. I got a friend of mine, he's in design for construction, and their main roofing materials providers have said that they are doing 10% increases automatic on all price for all materials every quarter for the next 4 quarters. That's a 46% annualized inflation rate on roofing materials.
I got a buddy works.
That was before the fucking war, by the way, right?
Yeah. Now that's amplifying now.
Garage doors have gone up 300% in like the last year. Go try to buy a roll-up steel garage door right now. It's insane. Somebody had asked, I have so many projects going on the compound videos all the time. How do I not get overwhelmed? What you see on the compound videos is about 10% of my normal day. Nicole can tell you, she's been in here.
Yeah.
While we had 300 people, 350 people here, I still ran my normal day other than working here in the building.
Yeah.
Like, you just do it, man. Like people, like 90% of people's problems with anything in their life is that they don't act. Like they just didn't do it. You sat there, thought about it, sat there, moped on it. It's a light switch. You just have to click it in your head and go do it. That's why I had Lance talk. Like I wanted Lance to tell his story about dying and being blown up and having to go and learn how to read and write and do everything over again. Because the close to that is, look what I'm doing now. None of you have any excuse.
Yeah, and you can set it up that it doesn't have to take a lot of time. If you follow instructions for lasagna mulching and keep up on the little weeds, then you don't get the big weeds, which take all the time. Some advice I should totally take for myself one of these years. The other,
nothing automated.
He has a bunch of raised beds. He also has a lot of gravel, and the raised beds don't get weeds like they do in the ground.
Yep. And there's nothing automated here. Everything I do by hand.
Yeah. We should automate your watering though.
I have it. I have the whole greenhouse. I have the whole watering kit for it. I've had it for 2 years. I just literally never
gotta do it, man.
So at Self-Reliance Festival in June, are we doing a water install build?
Yeah,
I don't know. If you're asking me, I can't tell who you're looking at through the screen. If you're asking me, I haven't figured out if I can come up there yet or not.
Oh yeah, it'd be great if you could come up to Self-Reliance Festival. We'll talk about that offline and make a big announcement if you say yes.
Okay.
But that would be fun. So you're thinking about it.
I'm thinking about it, but I've got 2 other commitments, and I got a wife vacation, and it's summer, and
Tennessee's beautiful for vacation.
Yeah, it is.
Yep. Anyway, so Self-Reliance Festival, we just finished one about a week ago, and the next one's scheduled for June 11th. Not July. I think I said July 11th. June 11th and 12th. And we just heard from Billy Bond from Permapastures. He's going to be speaking about, he has a system, it's called the Chicken Tractor on Steroids, where he raises meat birds. They produce compost, and he's figured out how to feed them for free. And that's a pretty cool little system he has there. He's also doing a pork processing workshop that's an add-on that will be launched this week on my website that we'll do Friday before Self-Reliance Festival. So if you're coming anyway, you can camp Friday night. You can take that workshop, camp Friday night, and go through the whole weekend. We're going to have a really good time. And, maybe Jack will pop in. That would be kind of cool if he did.
It'd be cool if I can make it happen. I'd like to. I'll see what I can do.
Yeah. So that's going to be a fun one. If you want to get tickets, guys, it's selfreliancefestival.com. We've got tickets at $35, which is a steal of a deal through the end of this month. And then it will go up because more people equals more expenses. So closer we get, the higher the price. That's how that rolls. It's kind of like Southwest airline tickets.
Somebody just asked, and I want to hear Jack's take on it, was Elon Musk retasking the satellites to provide Starlink for that area. My first thought is Russia just demonstrated a couple months ago that they can shoot down satellites. Yet you notice that Russia didn't shoot down any of these satellites.
Yeah, that's actually interesting. Let's look at that, communication shutdown thing alone. Putin seemed, and again, I'll get accused of being an apologist or some shit for Putin. It's just, and the analysts are saying this, Putin seems to be waging a very limited war. Like, there's no reason Russian forces couldn't have shut down the airspace over Ukraine in a day. When they went into Georgia, that's what they did. They completely controlled the airspace. We still have Ukrainian jets providing support to ground troops, and they haven't done that. They could easily target communications and shut down all of the TV broadcasting out of Ukraine, so Ukraine can't tell their side of the story. They've left all that in place. It's an odd thing. I don't even know that Starlink is going to do much over Ukraine. Like, does that mean that the average Ukrainian has the kit that they need to use it?
Correct. Yeah.
Right. Okay. And is internet down in Ukraine? Because I keep seeing these like appeal to emotion videos of these young girls talking about having to sleep in a shelter, but they're all dressed up like Instagram models. Like, something's a little bizarre there. So I just look at Musk, and I have things about Musk I like and things I dislike. I definitely don't think he's like totally one of us. I think there's a part of him that wants to be, but he just can't commit because there's so much money and not coming all the way over. And he's also a publicity whore. So how simple is this? All of a sudden, Elon Musk is freaking Tony Stark from Iron Man. Like, he's got that image that he's trying to portray. I'll just move some satellites over there. They won't do a fucking thing, right? Because if you want to become a Starlink customer, I think it's like $500 to buy the shit, the little dish and all that you set up so you can use it. So what good is that satellite? Now, I don't want it. I could be wrong. Maybe the case is that the local ISPs can harness that bandwidth and provide it to their customers somehow. I don't know. But to me, it just seems like publicity bullshit to me.
Yeah.
I mean, how does Little Miss Ukraine access the Starlink satellite? No one has an answer, but everybody thinks he's a hero. I think he's a fucking genius financially.
I know my neighbor accesses it with a thing and loves it.
Yeah. Yeah, but you have to have the thing.
You have to have the thing. Yeah.
How do you get the thing into Ukraine right now when there's no commercial air flights in and out of Ukraine?
Yeah. Yeah.
Did he send like C-130 carrying 10,000 of the things?
And rain them down? Who knows?
Yeah. Dropped them from little parachutes with Elon's picture on them. That would be kind of fucking cool. Okay. I would be like, okay, that was badass. But I don't think that happened.
I don't think it did either. All right. What are the odds the US stays out of this?
It depends on how you mean the question, right? Like, we're already not out of this.
Yeah, we're in it.
We're fucking getting all these countries to lay all these sanctions on Russia. We basically pilfered $640 million from them in the first round of sanctions, literally took that money away from them. So we're involved. The odds that we stay out of this from a military conflict, I think, are very high, because I think that ginning up the concept of war is very advantageous to the people in power. Actually engaging in a fucking war with Russia, not so much. Like, this can be like, why would they do this right now? To justify more laws, more regulations, more alphabet agencies, more surveillance, more munitions, more weapons. That it seems to me our government has more interest turning on its own people than on supposed adversaries. So I think we're going to use this as some kind of puppet show. My one fear is that historically the world has a habit of getting into wars over stupid shit that should never have led to the world wars. Yeah, assassination of a fucking archduke should not have led to World War I. World War II was impossible without the punitive things that the US and France and England threw on top of Germany, and then willingly allowing Germany to build back up and literally contributing to it. And they go, oh, fuck, I don't know what happened. I mean, a lot of people don't know this, but IG Farben was the company that mixed the fuels for the Nazi jets, and they were a subsidiary of Standard Oil, which fucking Prescott Bush, which is George Bush, the elder's fucking dad, like the younger one's grandfather, was fucking selling the additive to the fucking Nazis so their jets could get off the ground while his son was in the Pacific Theater serving as a fighter, right? So a fighter jet pilot, right? I mean, you can never underestimate their willingness to make money off of war. I mean, it's the Pink Floyd song, "The Dogs of War," is ringing in my head right now. But they can make so much more money by not getting into a direct conflict with Russia. Because I think if we get into a direct conflict with Russia, the potential for the use of nuclear weapons is seriously there. And that changes the schematics for everybody. That's literally what kept us in this tenuous peace for the last 70 years. We had war everywhere, but we have not had broad-scale global warfare everywhere. Taiwan, people keep trying to tie that in. That's a different thing. Like, if the Chinese go into fucking Taiwan, we will fucking hit them because our interests there are totally different and our relationship there is totally different.
And now for something completely different. When should you get rid of expired medical gear?
Never. No fucking such thing. Fucking
if
bandage does
it's
not
breaking
expire.
down, I guess.
Most of the stuff you're calling medical gear are dry goods, right? You're talking bandages and stuff like that. Quick clot. The expiration date is not on the product; it's on the contents, and a lot of that is just for military contract stuff. I know a dude who checks in all of these units that come back when they come from overseas, and all of that shit, all of the contents of the medical pouch, to include the multi-tools, the bandages, I mean, everything. The Benchmade hook, they go in trash cans. They literally go in dumpsters, and then they get issued new shit. And that's all contract money. That's just creating new dollars. And that, like, the quick clot doesn't expire. The original thermogenic stuff, if you go back 20 years ago, there were some issues with it. But all the dates on all the goods now, it's on the packaging and it's required by the FDA.
Yeah, and I look at dates on stuff like that as, if it's getting brittle and falling apart or rotting, if it's gauze, which can happen if you store it wrong.
Like in the sun?
Get rid of it. But if it has an expiration date and it's gauze is gauze, then I'm going to keep my gauze.
Now, be aware, guys storing sutures, the breakdown, the sutures that absorb and the dissolvable sutures, those will dissolve over time.
Okay.
Most of your other stuff, your synthetics and stuff, they're fine.
Yeah, and then on medications, this is one of the biggest scams on the planet. There was a military study done on this that they literally buried, and when I put it out, I was actually risking being attacked legally for putting it out because they don't want it out. And it basically says nothing happens to medications other than the efficacy declines over time. So the worst thing that would happen if you had some penicillin well stored and it was 10 years old is if you were giving it to somebody while you were being your own doctor during a grid down shit at the fan and it wasn't working, you would give them a little bit more. Right. And I've had Doc and Amy on the show and they've talked about all of this. And, they've got a medical doctor and advanced practitioner NP, and they're both saying the same thing. So
military published study on that. You can find it. It's on the internet. And they spent years and a lot of money testing drugs at 15, 20, 25 years. And that's what they were talking about. I heard when you interviewed them, they cited that as well.
Yeah. And it's legal for it to be there, but it's illegal to distribute. So they paid for it with our fucking money, and they tell us we're not allowed to distribute it.
Yeah.
It's not classified or anything like that either. Like, it's just, no, you're not allowed. I don't even know if it really is or if they've just said that to, like, quash people doing it or to justify social media censorship.
Yeah, it's continuity of government, not continuity of society.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very insightful.
You need a shirt that says that.
Yeah. We do.
Yeah.
We've got some coming out.
We're going to see that next week, right?
You need one that says I monetize trolls.
Yeah.
I said that in my interview with Adam Curry. He's like, I'm writing that the fuck down.
Yeah. And they can
I learned that skill from you, man.
Just because one guy does a shirt that says trolls doesn't mean I won't sell 120 of them in 5 minutes. Like, if you see me do a shirt, other than my trademark stuff, use the same damn logos. I stole them from somewhere.
Guns and Gardens. Where did that come from?
Yeah.
I don't give a shit. I'm the same way, man. Absolutely.
Yeah. That's the prosperity mindset instead of the scarcity mindset right there in action. Okay, we got a pressure canner. It's more than 50 pounds full. It has a warning about glass top stoves. Has anyone ever had a problem with weight on those? I can answer this question. I've not personally had a problem with weight on those. I have pressure canned on glass top stoves carefully, but pressure canning in a big canner is less weight than water bath canning because you have about this much water in the bottom of that thing versus full. And I have a good friend who did crack it, and I don't know if it was the weight or the heat, but she sent me a picture of her canner falling through her glass top. So I would be careful with that. If you're worried about it, the Camp Chef stove that Jack has at, what is it? TSP, what's your Amazon one?
I'm getting the link right now.
We'll get the link for you. That thing is what I can on outside because I don't want the heat in my house. It's not that expensive, and you hook it up to a propane tank. It does a great job canning. It gets hot enough. Because the other problem with a glass top stove for canning is it takes for flipping ever to get the water up to temperature on one of those things in that big of a volume. So that's
literally everybody should own that stove or one similar to it, where you can cook with gas outside of your house for completely different reasons. It's a lifestyle thing. Before I got my Blackstone, it was how I would make eggs for breakfast and a Bloody Mary on a Saturday morning. And I still sometimes I want to drag my Blackstone up on my pool deck. So I will still go up there sometimes and, we'll cook out and have morning at the pool in a summer day. If the power goes out, I have a gas stove, but if you don't, now you do. $100, $100, and there's an adapter you can get for it, and you can run grill tanks on it, or you can run the little 1-pounders. My one thing on that stove, if you're running the 1-pounders, don't fucking try to run both burners at the same time. It will freeze the little 1-pound tank.
Also, Camp Chef makes one of those that has an oven next to it, so you can
Yep.
I know you guys don't eat bread, but all you guys storing 1 million, pounds of wheat, they have one that's got an oven on that thing.
Yep, that's cool. Okay, my largemouth ball jars have been cracking on bottoms. Minor heat shock. Don't know why. Well, I would reduce the heat shock. My experience with ball jars in the last 3 years is they're not as good. I lose 1 from every 24 on the first batch of canning, and it's the bottom cracking off. The other thing is be really careful about not slamming them down, because the other way that happens is if you drop them in the canner and let them sort of float down the water, that can be enough to crack the bottom. Those are the only 2 things I have. It's like quality hasn't been as good. They could be getting old if they're older ones, and then really being careful with banging them around because they're not as strong as they used to be. Jack, you have any thoughts on that, or John?
On the not as strong thing, when we were asshole little kids, we used to shoot mom's canning jars with BB guns all the time, and they didn't break. Half the time they wouldn't break. I haven't shot a ball jar in a long time, but things are not like they used to be. They have built-in planned obsolescence to them.
Agreed. I would also say that, like what you said about when you set them in, you can set a jar down and like, oh, I didn't crack it.
Yeah.
But you put a micro fissure in it, and then thermal shock will cause that fissure to expand. That's usually what happens. Or, they don't exactly take a lot of care when they ship these things around. So sometimes it's not maybe that it was manufactured poorly, but it was handled in a way that was rough. It didn't actually break. You didn't see a break. It created that micro fissure. And my experience has been, you do get, about 1 out of 2 dozen that break, but the ones that don't break the first time, unless you do something stupid, they don't break the second, the third, the fourth time. So I think it's more damage en route. When you order shit from Amazon and the guy fucking throws it over the fence and shit, like that's happening all the time. And they're like, no, I didn't. I'm like, well, here's my surveillance fucking video of you throwing it over the fucking fence. So I think you did. And by the way, I know it was you because I don't think the other guy drives a car exactly like yours. It's usually not the guy in the Sprinter van. It's the independent delivery guy that does that shit, So that would be that. The other thing is make sure you're using the little wire rack in the bottom. You're not setting straight down on the bottom of the canner. The electric canner comes with one. I remember my All-American had like it looked almost like it was aluminum, but I don't think it was. And it held the cans up off the bottom. And I think you're a lot more likely to, one, cause a microfracture when you're hitting something like the solid bottom of the canner. And then the other thing you're more likely to do is transfer the heat directly into the can instead of through the thermal relationship with the liquid or the stain.
That makes sense.
I am not a canning expert. That's my best.
Well, hey, it all works. I know John Willis is a canning expert, right?
On everything.
On everything. Absolutely.
Just ask someone and they'll tell you.
All right. Any other things we want to talk about today? I actually kind of wanted to bring up the difference between building, preparing into your life versus panic prepping.
Huh.
Right now, I'm hearing a lot about panic prepping, and it revolves around buying MREs and rice and beans and storing up as much food as possible, because if we have more supply chain disruptions, we're not going to have enough food to eat. And how much cash should I have at home? That's another big one. When people are in this mindset of panic prepping, I mean, I guess if you have nothing at home at all, it can't hurt you to have some food that you buy quickly. But Jack's way of building it into your life through, you call it copy canning, right?
Yeah. I stole that from Ron Hood, just to be
talk about that a little bit, because I think that's a really good approach to figuring out how to develop a deep pantry. And if you think about it as a deep pantry, you're always pulling from, you end up in a more solid place.
Yeah. I mean, like when I was a teenager, one of my first jobs is I worked as a stock boy in a local supermarket. And when the new food would come in, we would, pull everything to the front and stack it behind it. Or if it was in a situation where we had to, we'd actually pull it off the shelf, stack everything in the back, and put the oldest stuff in the front. It's called fronting merchandise. And we should be doing that with our pantries. And we call it copy canning because it sounds cool and because that's what Ron Hood came up with, right? But it's really, don't think of it as canning. It's any food item that your family regularly uses that stores without being in the freezer or the refrigerator. So you go to the store, let's say it's a can of fucking some kind of canned chili, and your family eats it, and they eat maybe a can a week. So when you go to the store, you usually buy a can. We'll buy 2. Put them in the pantry. Next week, buy 2. Next week, buy 2. And do that until you have a month, 2, 3 months worth of that product, and then do another product. And if you do that, you slowly move into the situation where basically you're running your pantry like the shelf at a grocery store. They don't buy in this shipment as much as they need for today. They buy until their next resupply. And then they want a buffer. You got to start thinking of everything in your life is a battery. When you do an aquaponics system, your sump is a water battery. Your pantry is a food battery. And how long can you draw at it before you have to plug it back in and recharge it? And to me, that's really simple. And the whole concept of building it in your life versus just panicking. First of all, I don't fucking understand somebody who, after 2.5 years of this COVID pandemic bullshit, is suddenly freaked out by a potential war with Ukraine and Russia. Right? Where have you been? Right? Didn't you see, literally what happened is they panicked. This is like second stage panic, right? Like they panicked at the beginning of COVID. Once they could get toilet paper and bottled water again, they went back to life as normal. They spent their stimulus trucks on Netflix and shit like that. And now they're like, holy shit, there could be World War III. As though if we actually have nuclear war, as though having cash on hand and a couple bags of potato chips is going to keep you alive. It's insanity, and it is the fear reaction of the unprepared when the need for preparedness becomes evident to those who otherwise do not see it. That's what this is. And I almost, I try to be as gentle as I can with people and getting them on board. But I at a point now where I'm literally out of patience for that group of people. The person that's like, I just want to get started. I need to get started, whatever. Fine. I will take them by the hand. I will walk them through it. And either they do or they don't. The person that's freaking out, like, I can't help you because you're not in a state where you're helpable, right? It's not possible to help you right now because what you're focused on is so fucked up from what you actually need to be doing. You'd be better off figuring out, like you should have done 10 years ago right now, how the fuck can I make extra money? How can I build a side hustle? How can I build a business? When COVID started, Nicole, I had you on, like, it was the second show after it really all hit. And what did we talk about? Building a fucking business. Everybody wanted to freak out. What can you spray in your ass to not get COVID or some shit like that? What kind of fucking thing can you wrap around your face and not get the plague? And we're like, hey, you need to like get started building a business. That advice has not changed. I lost listeners because when they were freaking out, I said, look, you're supposed to be like my audience. Like, you're supposed to be preppers. Quit freaking the fuck out over the flu. I had people lose their shit on me. People that listened to me for 10 years flip out. Some of them came back once it became evident. Some of them didn't. But panicking never works. And then be creative. Like if you really want to add something to your preps and you can't get it through a normal channel because everybody's buying there, is there another way? I'll give you one example because I don't want to ruin them all, right? But like, people bought out all the fucking grain at like Honeyville and shit like that when COVID started. And they're like, I can't get wheat. I can't even get wheat or barley. Well, fucking first of all, why do you think you need it, right? Why do you need 500 pounds of barley all of a sudden? But I'm like, you want wheat or barley? Go to your feed store. Do you think it's really different wheat or different barley at your feed store? Go to a homebrew website. You can buy all the fucking wheat and barley you want freaking at a homebrew store right now. And I was also sending people to like stores like Webstaurant, which serves mainly the restaurant industry. No fucking problem. Buy whatever you want. But the places that were getting pounded were the ones that were in short supply. And the whole reason that we do this in the first place, guys, is so that we don't have to be adding to the fucking problem when everybody freaks out. Like preppers get called hoarders. We're not hoarders. We're preppers. We take in a time of surplus. We create our own surplus. And then we are not a drain on the system when there's a problem. And so if you're freaking out right now, I'm sorry. You got yourself to blame.
I'm not a hoarder.
And one more thing, and I'll let you go, John. If you ever did a fucking duck and cover drill in grade school, shut the fuck up about World War fucking III. You have no idea what the fuck you're talking about. Turn the goddamn TV off and get your ass to doing something important in your life. Because the scare tactics you're using right now for what's going on is inconsequential compared to the things that people our age actually watched happen in the world in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. I'm sorry, I'll stop.
I'm not a hoarder. I buy a truckload of shit every weekend. I have. For the last 10 years, we go out of town every weekend, and I come back with a truckload of shit every weekend. Not whether things are good or people think things are bad. But what you're really seeing here, it really is, it's the difference between a business owner and an employee, a lot of it, right? Because your panic buyers are not business owners. They don't run a business. They don't have I don't even call them side hustles anymore. I don't want somebody to have a hobby where they make some money. I want them to have a business where it is their life is their business and they don't have to rely on anybody else. But I'm going to make $2 million off of this war shit right now with everybody buying stuff. I'm literally going to sell $2 million in product that I would not have sold. But I'm not selling it to my viewers. I'm not selling it to my audience. I'm selling it to the guy that is looking for anything he can buy. And I actually have the product because we're building it currently. Anytime we're going to war, I'm building rigs. But the homeowner doesn't need a warfighter rig. He needs a smaller rig. And I can build 48 of them in a day. So we're building those. We do it all the time. During COVID, it was constantly, we built nothing but slings and micro rigs. That's literally all we made. And we did millions of dollars in sales of that. But I'm not telling my viewers to watch that. I'm actually trying to change my entire business model so that in the near future, you can't even come and buy from me. You have to be referred as an existing customer. Because we've built my entire lifestyle is 10 acres on this property. I don't want to sit in this building. I don't want to have to do all of this. But people are constantly going out. But what I want to say is, what if I see it all the time in these prepper groups that I'm in? It drives me crazy. I've got $20 to spend.
Oh, fuck.
What can I buy? If you have $20 to spend, turn the $20 into $40, 80, 160, 320. I need you to think like that. I don't want you to. What if that really is what it is? If this is all by design to dumb population down into spending their money so that they cannot have seed money to start a business and they have to remain an employee. It's the same thing with the tiny houses. It's the same thing with city planning, right? You can't buy a piece of property and put a little house. You have to build a 2,500 square foot house because a 2,500 square foot home comes with a water bill, an electric bill, 2.5 children. It comes with a tax base. It comes with a wife who's going to work. It's all about taxes. It's about keeping you a slave to their systems. And if you just took that money and stopped panic buying bullshit and put it into something that would make you money, I want you to take whatever money you're going to go and spend on macaroni and cheese this weekend and figure out how to take that money and your hobby and double that money by Monday. That's what I want you to do. And if you have any questions about that, hit me up. I would rather you not do any business with my company. And in 2 years, I want to come to you or you come to me and I'll go, hey, let's co-brand this. And I'll buy 144 units. That's a gross. You put my logo on them and I'll take your shit. And I'm going to raise the value of your price because you're not charging enough for it. I'm going to take and sell your shit for 50% more. And everything you make without my logo, you're going to now charge 30% more for it.
You know, I got an idea for a product for you. Occasionally, you come out with products that are more like a fun product.
Yes.
Right. And a lot of times they're like seasonally oriented.
Yes.
There's a shitload of people that have chickens or ducks that pick up eggs and they have just too many eggs every day.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
To carry in their hands or put in their pockets and break, right?
Yeah.
But they don't need a fucking basket that carries like 50 eggs like I have, right? You need to make, because you already have all the shit, a fucking grenade bandolier.
I saw somebody did that. Somebody
call it the egg-dolier and sell it for the Easter fucking holiday.
Well, that's a good idea. We should.
And if nothing else, you still got to. It still handles grenades, right?
Yeah.
But the grenade pouches are the perfect size for a freaking egg. And I think you can do like 24 or something like that in an egg delire.
Because you could totally do your Rambo. You know, you could have your 37 millimeter.
I'd use it for social media photo ops. I'd hang that motherfucker right outside of my door.
Yeah.
And
we do that. We just did a chef's hat a couple months ago. We just did aprons, and now we've got a mini tool apron out, which is awesome for gardening and crafts and stuff.
Now we know what John's doing.
Bandolier, remove the BAN and add egg.
I fucked it up, but they'll know what it means.
You might not get,
Let's see the comments, guys. Who would buy an egg? That's totally fucking wrong, but that's typing with one hand off to the side. So, egg delire. Who'd buy one, man? Because if enough of you do it, he'll fucking make them.
So the way we do this is we for Easter, for instance, right? We're gonna run. I'll tell you this. Every business does this. I just tell you what other businesses don't tell you. For Easter, we run some free promo item that you get for free, but you have to buy $50 worth of stuff to get it. That's why I sell patches and I sell stickers and we sell merchandise that we don't actually have to manufacture. I sell gummy bears. Highest profit margin in my building is gummy bears. I have gummy bears come on my property 5,000 pounds on a pallet. We use a forklift to unload them. We rebag them and we sell the shit out of gummy bears. I shouldn't even be telling you guys this. Highest profit margin in my entire business. It buys fucking cars, like the profit margin on gummy bears. So guys want that free thing. We don't ever rebuild the free thing, but they'll place 4, 5, 6 orders to get the free thing. And then they take the free thing and they put it on eBay, buy it now for $50, $65, and they sell multiples of them. And whatever they wanted in their order, they just got free. And that's how we do it. And the orders just come through. We'll go, instead of having 200 orders in a week, we'll have 750 to 1,000 orders to get the free trinket. And it's always something usable. We call it an Easter egg pouch, but it's really a tourniquet pouch that Velcros into their bag or whatever. So it always has a secondary use, a real use.
Yeah, you monetize everything. You monetize fucking snakes, and you're smarter than how I did it back when I used to breed them.
Yeah.
And I used to breed the shit out of them and I would sell them. I never made any real money on it. And John's like, fuck that. Let other people breed them. Buy a shitload of them cheap. That's why that guy's never going to make any real money unless he comes up with some real exciting morph and then sell them. And I'm like, that's so much smarter.
Because 12 snakes fit in a box and you're paying $55 to ship one, whereas you get the other 11 ride for free. I had so many snakes that Nicolas Cage's snake dude came here from Las Vegas and worked for me for 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah. That's badass. I had enough that when I quit doing it, I got a fucking letter from miceonice.com asking what they did wrong. They're like, why did we lose your business? I'm like, because I don't have snakes. I got like 4 snakes now. I don't need to buy. Because I used to buy I had a chest freezer just for mice and rats. That's how you got one too. See?
I just had one melt down.
Oh, no, wow. Yeah.
Oh, it sucks.
Yeah.
Oh, losing a freezer sucks.
Websterant, when nobody had freezers, Websterant had chest freezers, $450 in shipping. They put it on a semi truck. I had it here the next day. We kept a bunch of freezers outside, and just from the cold outside and not maintaining the freezer, the freezer died. We found it probably guessing 10 days after it had been dead, and it was full of rats and mice. So I have a whole video of it. The most disgusting thing in the world. Like, I was literally gagging. So we pulled the skid steer in and by hand pulled those rotted down bags of mice and filled the bucket and drove it to the dumpster. Luckily, they were picking up the dumpster the same day. Ugh. Now, with that said, that company sent us a brand new compressor, and Tad was here yesterday, and that freezer is now back running and brand new. So great company. We've bought stuff from Websterant many times.
Now, I get why you did it now, because it was a really expensive badass freezer. When I lost mine, it was like a little cheapo one, and it wasn't a mouse one. I had like deer meat and shit in it, right? Okay. Oh, it was so fucking bad. I opened, we went on vacation. It was 2 weeks in the Texas sun, and I had that faint whiff, and I'm like, what the? And I walked over, and I just barely cracked it, and I nearly threw up. I freaking duct taped it shut. Yeah. Put it on a dolly, pushed it out to the curb, called the junk company, and just said, get it the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
And the guy was like, is there like a body in there or something? I'm like, if you really want to open it, you can, but I wouldn't. right? It's like, I ain't opening that shit. You know? Him and another dude threw it on the back of a truck and took it away, man. But what we're talking about with business here, like, I want to talk about what, we call it the toolbox fallacy, but it's like the toolbox homestead fallacy that keeps so many people from making any fucking money. Like, I hear this all the time. I'm going to get a homestead and I'm going to do pastured chicken. I'm going to have a market card and I'm going to sell it. And I'm like, well, right now if you're thinking about moving to a homestead, you're going to move out. So right now you probably live where there's a lot of fucking people. People are what buy shit. Lettuce doesn't transport well, right? And eggs and shit like that either, especially in like small scale, don't transport well. But I bet you there's a lot of people already doing that around. Why don't you go out and start building a book of business for product and matching up people with product producers and be the middleman and simply run a co-op and deliver locally produced shit to your people, and then start saying to yourself, there are things we can't get locally, but I can, follow the John thing, and instead of buying one snake, buy 12, right? So you can maybe bring in some really high quality food products as well that you do have to bring in, but now you already have a customer base, and you basically build a catalog, and your customers order food from you every week, and the only thing you need is a busted ass fucking pickup truck and a trailer that you can do for a couple $1,000 and you can be in business. Oh, you really want to freaking raise pastured poultry and you don't have space? Well, have you even looked to see if there's any agricultural land that you can lease? Or if you call somebody up and they're like, yeah, I already got a guy leasing the land. Well, what's he doing? He's doing cattle. Your chicken aren't going to get in the fucking way. Do you think maybe that cattle guy might like a little bit of his cost on the lease offset? So you bring in your Salatin style chicken tractors behind his cattle. Now your food bill goes down. The pasture's getting even better. And you have portable infrastructure because you can move your tractors if you need to. Or you can just keep talking about one day, man.
Yeah.
One day, man, I'm going to get a homestead and I'm going to have to take 10 fucking years to build it up. And you're going to be 65 years old before you sell an egg.
You know what that is? That's the guy with the multicolor car.
Oh, yeah. Multicolor car guy. He's my favorite. I bet that motherfucker's still there in Pottsville. I bet he is. Because when I got out of the Army, he was still at it. When I went back home in 2003, multicolored car guy from my high school still had the multicolored car. For those that haven't heard this before, it's the guy in high school who has the old car and it's got a red fender and a white hood and Bondo everywhere and fucked up ball tires. And he's always like, man, one day when I get some money, I'm going to finish this car and I'm going to have Krager mags and I'm going to do the interior. It's going to be black and red. And like the image of what he's presenting is beautiful. I would love to do that to that car. But you look at that guy and you're like, no, you're not. No, you're not. Because you're never going to do anything except, and I knew guys that had money that could have done it that were an auto body and didn't do it with their own car because they were always spending their own money because they got on fucking dope and they were working like 18 hours a day doing auto body work. But they were literally like, so I work harder so I can make more money so I can buy more speed so I can work harder. Like people get in, whether it's drugs or anything, they get in these ruts. And they work. It's not that they don't work hard. We have two kinds of broke people. People that don't do shit and they're broke. Fuck you. You deserve it. People that work their ass off but work poorly who are broke. Those are the ones that like literally all you have to do is take the energy and redirect it. And you can have as much wealth as you want to build.
They're usually older than us too.
What's that?
They've been in high school longer than we have.
Oh, yeah.
They're usually,
they take a while to, or they quit, right? They
mine was I wanted a Ford Mustang. But every Thursday when Auto Trader came out, I would buy all of the Auto Traders, right? And I'd buy all of the Mustang magazines. I had enough money in publications that I could have bought the damn car.
Yeah. Yeah. My uncle was like that. I remember when he passed on and I went up in the attic and he had like fucking every like 70s hot rod magazine and stuff like that. Yeah. And I tried to get some money for it. I'm like, maybe this is collectibles. I think I got like $15 for all of it. It was all worthless shit sitting in the I thought somebody would care about like a 1969 hot rod magazine with a early Porsche on the cover. And apparently, unless it's been perfectly preserved, no, they really don't. So that was how much money he spent on that shit instead of actually buying a car. I don't know.
Yeah, I'd spend $30-$40, every week on it.
It's the dream instead of building the dream, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And I think people like that, what they're really doing, if I try and I fail, then the dream might go away. And it's a much safer thing to convince yourself that out in the future, there's this wonderful thing for me. And if you corrupt the dream, then it will go away and you won't have it anymore. But this is my dash thing, right? Your dash of how long you get to fucking live is shorter every fucking day. Yeah. And how old are you going to be? Like, guys like all three of us here, we're all about the same age. We've lived more than half our lives unless, some life extension technology comes along. and we're not fucking slowing down. We're not fucking waiting. Yeah. And I think, God, if I had waited till now, I'd be fucked. I wouldn't have anything.
I'm 50. If I had moved at 30 like I move at 50 now, things would be completely different.
Yeah.
You'd be a billionaire.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I had learned to focus on one thing at a time, which I don't do all the time, but I do in the morning from 8 till noon. If I had just learned that, I'd be way better. It took me till I was almost 50 to learn that.
Yeah.
And then make the decision, like, why am I doing this? Is it getting me anywhere? Or is it just like mental masturbation today?
Yeah, absolutely. And then you have to figure out, like, you have to design, like, lifestyle design when it comes to like business is not just about a business that works, but a business that fits you. Like, I couldn't run a business like John does because I would fucking kill every employee I had. When I was in my 30s, I was running fairly large corporations. One of my corporations that I was COO of had 2,500 contractors all around the world and about 50 employees in the same building as me. And I literally got this close one time to throwing an employee through the window. That's not my skill set, right? Like, I'm not good at dealing with people who I'm paying money who don't fucking work, right? That's not what I'm good at. Now, people that do work, they think I'm the greatest boss you could ever have. But John, you've talked about it. What's the percentage of employees that really work and earn the money you're paying them? It's rather low.
10% of your employees do 80% of your work.
Yep.
First thing I do when I get up in the morning, no matter what time it is look to see who has already called in and isn't coming to work. I'm this, I'm that, I'm this. I go, that must be nice. Like, I have always been here to pay your payroll. Like, your payroll always gets paid, whether my wife has had surgery the same day you've got payroll. But that's just how it always is. My friend Rob says, I have to have a human resources guy because my human resources skills are, so have a seat. Yeah, you're fucking fired. Like, that's literally, that's Rob. And he runs a giant company now. It's a very growing company. So to maintain, you just have to come to the mindset that you're going to have to employ 50% of your people and they do 20%. You have to have 5 employees to do what one employee should do.
Yeah, I had a time when I was in outside plant construction, and this is back when cell phones were just coming out, and I got everybody a Nextel. So everybody could just immediately communicate, right? Yeah. And I said, it wasn't even about not being at work. Like, I would literally have to move machines around. We have a machine, like a $200,000 machine that we have a lease on. If it's not running, we're burning fucking money. So I might, because you're going to be 10 minutes late, I might actually send somebody else to a different job and make adjustments. And I'll deal with the 10 fucking minutes, but I need to know. And so I gave everybody an Nextel. Like, if you're going to be fucking late, and that means 1 minute, you need to, as soon as you know you're going to be late, hit me up on Nextel. Let me know I'm going to adjust what the crews are doing that day. And I have guys show up 10, 15 minutes late. And I was just like, you know what? I need to teach you a lesson. And I'd rather that machine sit for a fucking day than you think you can fucking do this. So you just go home and you don't get paid today. And if you do it again tomorrow, you're fucking fired. And they would literally do it again tomorrow and think they weren't fucking fired.
Yeah.
And it's like, give me your shit. Pack your shit, get the fuck out. And my partner was always like, we can't do that. We need manpower. I'm like, we don't need motherfuckers that don't show up.
Yeah.
Right. So you need to talk to him more like a father. I'm like, well, you don't know my dad, because that was pretty gentle compared. Like, and maybe that's why I am the way I am. But like, what I've learned over the years is, of course, your employees don't want it as much as you, or they wouldn't be employees. And that's not that being an employee makes you inherently bad or anything, but you don't want it as much as the entrepreneur, or you'd be a fucking entrepreneur. Or when you find those employees, you know what happens, John. They work their ass off for you. They're worth their weight in fucking gold. You pay them, you take good care of them, and they leave. And they don't leave because they're mad at you, and they don't leave because there's some discrepancy. They simply advance to the point where they say, I have learned all I can inside this organization, and I'm either going to move up by moving over, or I'm going to do my own thing. And I never was angry at that person, but it makes that revolving door all the worse, because then you lose somebody that actually was pulling the weight for you.
Because ultimately that's what we want, right? As we raise children or we raise employees, you have to develop them. I want a guy that comes in and is hungry, and I will build him. And I will build him to the point where we're going to put him into a new position or create a new position because he's so valuable. But most of the guys come in and they do what it takes to get the job. They don't do what it takes to keep the job. Most of the people, like, I will put a lot of energy into an employee, but once you demonstrate a threshold that you can operate at this level, you don't ever get to go back down. Once you're at that level, that comes with a pay increase. But you don't ever get a pay increase and be able to do less than that. That is your new minimum. And when we have people like that, I've helped guys set up companies. We've put them in positions to do things we can do business with, but they're very few and far between, because most guys that truly want to work, they already work.
Yeah. Yeah. I was probably the only person that was insane enough that I literally bought copies of Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Work Week and gave them to my employees. And the guy's like, really? If I got an assistant and I paid for it out of my pocket and they did have my job, why the fuck would I care?
Is your job done?
You know what that's going to do? That's going to move you into fucking management if you actually do it. None of them ever did. But it was just like open the fucking mind of what's possible, right? People are like, well, if you do that, they might all do it. I wish they would, right? As long as the work gets done the way I want it done. If they can be entrepreneurial in their job, then maybe I can build them. And it is parenting. It's working yourself out of a job. Like if you're a good mentor, you shouldn't have to be a mentor to somebody forever. That's basically being a sponge and pulling off of them. Like the guy that wants to sell you a mentorship program for $5,000 or something like that. I'm not going to do it because it's going to make me fucking miserable. I used to do consulting too. And you go in and you roll out a program for a company and then they don't do it. And they want to pay you again to do it again and not act on it. Most people are like, fuck it, you can keep paying me. I put too much into what I do. I can't do that. That's why I'm a solo podcaster now, because I can pay for everything I want in my life sitting here behind my desk talking to y'all. And I certainly don't fucking apologize for it.
Most guys selling mentorships have never built anything.
No, they built a mentorship business.
And guys that have built things continue to build shit and don't have time to mentor.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. This is a good question. I've been running my gig for real since COVID. I'm at the point I need another person with me. Best way to find good help.
You got children? Develop your kids. Do you have a wife? What does your wife do? Would you like your wife to be home and not have to go out and have that commute, right? I am lucky that I have a 16,000 square foot building. You can't have, I feel that there cannot be a 50-50 partnership. It's got to be 49-51, right? There has to be a deciding factor when it's said. And sometimes when that happens, I don't like the way that happened with what Amanda said, or Amanda doesn't like something I said, but we're still able to work and maneuver around in a giant ass building. Now, in your apartment, that might be very different, and that might be the end of your relationship. If that ends your relationship, maybe it wasn't meant to be. But I know Jack's wife handles all of his booking and does all the stuff that Jack doesn't do, and Amanda does everything here that I don't do. So that really is the best thing. And if you have children, you can put children on payroll and not have to pay payroll tax and taxes on your kids. It's just like you just have to, it depends.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not going to go there because I'm not real good at it. I burn out. You know, I've hired, since I've gone into this and moved here, the only people I've hired are, I call them farm hands. And they're basically kids I give random jobs on the farm to mentor them. And that doesn't even really work out, you know.
Gasoline in your diesel truck.
Yeah, that's what I got for that. And the kid was dumb. And instead of just telling me he didn't know, he tried to do it anyway. And like, there's a lesson there. Like when you're young and stupid, there's things you can try anyway. And if you mess it up, it's no big deal. But putting gas in a diesel truck, that's a problem. Especially when it's loaded down with like 4 tons of shit. That and stuck on a blind curve. That kid called me, John. I swear to God, I thought he killed a family with the truck. He had an accident. He was complete fucking mental shutdown. And I'm like, I'll call AAA. That's why I have it. I'll come down and get you in about 10 minutes. He's like, 10 minutes? I'm like, there's no fucking reason for me to show up until the tow truck gets there. We're both going to be standing on the side of the road. And I got there and a constable had come and he shoved him off the road so he wouldn't get killed. And he's just sitting there laughing his fucking ass off. He thought he was my son when I pulled up. I'm like, nah, my genetics ain't great, but they're better than that, you know? But yeah, I mean, it's very hard to build employees, especially when you hire one. But I will tell you a quick story. So when my buddy Brian Black, who runs ITS Tactical, his first employee, he hesitated firing. And I kept telling him, you need to fire this guy because he's costing you money instead of making you money. And the way Brian eventually fired this guy, because I guess when your first kid, you're trying to mentor him, you know, you want to let go. I ended up having Gary Vaynerchuk on the show, and we ended up doing like a private call with just certain people in the audience, and Brian was one of them. And fucking Gary told him, you should have fired him yesterday. right? And so Brian literally goes and tells this guy, "You're fired. I should have fired you a long time ago, but Gary Vaynerchuk fucking told me last night that I need to fire you, so you're fired." I had told him, like, he was wanting to buy this winch for his truck, and I'm like, "You just paid that motherfucker for 3 weeks to not work, way more money than this winch. You need to go buy the winch, take him out and point at it and say, this is more valuable than you, so you're fired." And
you were literally the worst employee I have ever had. I've said that multiple times.
Did you mean it every time though?
Yeah, it progressively.
The new level.
And I tell them in a manner like, "Hey, you can't work here anymore, but I am going to tell you this. This is why, and this is what you could have done differently. If you just operate as though everything you do through the day is important to you, you will do everything as though it's important. Add value. Do things that your boss doesn't want to do. Do things so that your boss doesn't have to do them. It's simple little things. Even if you're not good at certain tasks, and you just pick up all the bullshit that's out there, people will notice that it's happening, and sooner or later somebody's going to realize who's doing it. Like, it will always add value. But anytime I need, and I'm terrible about firing people. Anytime I need to fire somebody, I dwell on it and try to pretend it wasn't bad that day, and maybe tomorrow will be bad. But every time I get to the point of doing it, it is such a big relief that you literally dread coming to your own building because of a person that's going to be there. And the difference is I own that fucking building. Like, I own everything in here. So I don't need to be uncomfortable in my position.
No. It's hard though. It is, because, it's a person on the other side of it. And yeah, you and I come across as very harsh people, and we can be.
Yeah.
But we do try to mentor people. Yeah.
Well, you don't pull punches when you need to say something, but you're not unkind people. There's a difference, right?
No, I think I'm very kind to. I think I'm much too kind to people a lot of times.
Yeah. And those who are kind when they are cruel will have to be cruel when they should be kind.
There's a guy commented that he's told his wife is a landscape architect and has more business than she can handle. And he's been after her to get an assistant. What I would say to that is I don't have any input on the assistant. If you have more work than you can handle, raise your cost until you have the work that you want to handle. And what you will find is you will still have more work than you can handle, and you will have higher level clients, and you will have more money. Always raise your cost if you have too much work. Always.
And back to the employee thing So I swore this time that I was building my business, I would not need an employee. My mom functionally works for me. She works really hard. I can trust her. But now with the coffee business up, I have somebody helping me in the coffee shop. Or the shack. They are not an employee. They are contracting with me, but it's somebody who is already versed in the gig economy, somebody who has a farm, who I know from the farmer's market, and she works hard. And I already saw that she worked hard, and we had the relationship, and she's been fantastic. Like, she's smart enough to figure it out. I can teach her how to roast if I need to teach her how to roast. And I'm going to teach her how to roast just as a backup plan, or if she wants to start her own roasting business. And she has a lifestyle where she has the time to work, 1 or 2 days a week with me, which is perfect. And that's been really lucky. I can say when I was running a business where we employed trainers, I had all the same issues you guys had, where people would just drop the ball, or they would look really good on paper, and then you'd get them in the office and they spent more time explaining why they couldn't do a thing than doing the thing. And I just need you to get your shit done. I mean, that's where I ran into it. And I was way too nice. When I look back, I was way too nice. Because part of it is, do you accept them not getting their stuff done as a boss? You're a better boss if you don't accept that, and you don't lose all your good people.
Well, and you can go ahead, John.
I get to a point where, like, I always use entry level, right? Because everything starts at entry level. Because if you can't get past entry level, you're never going to get to the next level. But clipping and clean, we have threads on all of our stuff. They make automated machines that clip and clean, but they clip so short, you still have this thread there. We actually have a longer thread. We burn it and smear it so it can never come back out. Our stuff never comes apart. There's no little Irish pennants all over all of our stuff, which is probably a racial slur nowadays. So you clip and clean. When I'm standing there, you clip and clean as fast as I clip and clean. But when I'm not there, you have a 75% reduction in time, right? And what that means is, if I'm paying you 8 hours to do your job, I can simply come and do your job in 2 hours and not have any frustration with you. So, but when I'm standing there, you move at the speed I do. And I literally tell them that. I go, when I hire them, when I put them on the table, I go, hey, teach this guy your job. Teach him your job. He's not your replacement. I'm going to give you more responsibilities, but teach this guy how I taught you, not how you would teach him, right? And demonstrate it. And I tell him, I go, your job here as the new guy is to outperform the dude that's here. Like if you come in here and add so much value, I can get rid of 2 other dudes. Like I literally tell him that. And I go, look, and when you perform less and the day comes when I have to get rid of you, because that will come if you perform less, 3 more dudes will walk through the door. And they look at you like, no, they won't. And everybody's shaking their head. Like every single time the universe works in threes. Anytime I've had to fire a guy, I have had 3 dudes show up that week every single time.
Nice.
Yeah. And I would say, like, when you were talking about hiring your kids and stuff like that, like, start early before they actually can even fulfill the role of an employee in training them. Because even if they don't work for you, you're now training them to be a grown-ass man or woman when they go out in the world and be able to work for somebody else. So, like, and then, like, I'm a big fan on, like, the kind of stuff like Nicole's doing or I'm doing with the farm is piecework. Like, a job pays a rate. You do not get paid by the hour to go pick up eggs and fill duck shit tanks. Like, that's not how that works, because you can do that really fast or you can do that really slow. In the end, those are not mission critical to the point of it needs to be done by 3 o'clock. So I don't really care as long as it gets done today. All I care is that it gets done. So then this job pays this much money, go do it. And then if you don't do it and I have to do it, I'm pissed, right? And if I don't catch it in time, it might hurt me with a customer, but it's still going to get done. And I don't have the animosity that I gave you money to do something you didn't do or you did wrong. So, like, my grandson can't do a lot yet. He's 11, right? But he'll do candling of eggs and packaging of eggs and stuff. We pay him per egg. And he has to keep his own fucking records. Mm-hmm. This is how many eggs I did on this day and stuff like that. He has to basically give my wife at the end of the week a freaking invoice. It's not a real invoice, but it's like, I did this much times this much money, and this is how much you owe me. And then we actually tax him. We tax him at 10% so he can learn about taxes.
That's awesome.
And I'm not necessarily saying we're going to keep that long term, but he can probably hear me from here. So I'm not going to say what it actually goes towards.
Yeah, I figured.
Y'all can figure it out.
Yeah. You know, John Moody, who does Abby's elderberry, that guy, his kids help him make like they go to a commercial kitchen, they have this whole process, and he 100% pays them by the piece. And he said they can get more bottles of elderberry syrup made and out and cleaned up than a normal adult could. They just buzz through it. So
no, they will. It's not they can. They will get more done.
Yeah, exactly.
The adult can do it. They just don't do it.
Yep. Awesome. Well, we're at about an hour and a half, guys. Maybe we should wrap up for this month, since we're going to do First Tuesday next month too, right?
Yeah.
All right. So before we wrap up, any last words? I'll start with you, John.
I have these conversations every night at 9 o'clock on Facebook. It's Special Operations Equipment. I'm on Facebook and Instagram. I do a video most mornings at 4:30 a.m., just kind of yelling at the camera. I do some lifestyle, day on the homestead kind of stuff, a day on the compound. My compound's pretty neat. There's a motocross track. There's all kinds of stuff here. I have built the life I want, and I just kind of show it to people on the vlogs, I guess. They're on YouTube. You can find them. I'm super easy to find. You can find my business at soetacticalgear.com. My stuff sells faster than we can even make it. So find me wherever you want to find me if you want to have some conversation.
Awesome. Jack.
You can find me again. I'm the Survival Podcast is my podcast, 14 years running, over 3,000 episodes. The short domain to get there is tspc.co. We have covered everything we've talked about today ad nauseum and more. We do everything from current events and what's going on and how to prepare for it to basic preparedness, to homesteading, permaculture, you name it, we've got it. And if it's something you want to learn about, we're not doing a show about it this week, there's a search box there. I promise you, no matter what you look for, you will find interviews with experts or solo shows by me that go into it and tell you how to do it. And then check out my YouTube channel. You can just look for Jack Spirko on YouTube if you're not watching through my channel right now. And we put out a lot of live shows like this every week. And I have thousands of videos of my homestead and building different systems and things like that too.
Awesome. I'm Nicole Sauce from Living Free in Tennessee. If you have not filled up your podcast feed with podcasts already, think about adding mine. We talk a lot about developing my homestead in a way that I will not have to drive myself crazy maintaining it. We've got an intentional community here that we call the Holler Neighbors, where everybody owns their own place, but we work together on projects, which has been a very empowering thing. And you can, if you want awesome craft roasted coffee, get that at hollerroast.com, or go to John Willis's website and order coffee from him, because I roast the SOE coffee. It's also very good. I give the same care to his coffee that I would give to any that's ordered from here. And then finally, if you are motivated by these conversations, interested in exploring true freedom and how to build freedom into your life, how to make that choice, how to start your small business, how to do things like blacksmithing, soap making, anything of that nature, consider coming to Self-Reliance Festival at the Special Operations Equipment Compound in Camden, Tennessee, June 11th and 12th. You can get your tickets right now at selfreliancefestival.com. Thanks for joining in, guys.
Not just that. Jack does hands-on stuff at his place also.
Yeah.
And Nicole does a lot at her place also. She's got one coming up also. What date's that?
That one is April 28th, 29th, 30th, and it's in Lancaster, Tennessee, an hour east of Nashville. I do actually have one ticket left, surprisingly. All of a sudden, I have one. So if you want to come,
You could be bribed if somebody really wanted to come. They could
maybe. Cost for mine is $500 and includes food and beverage and camping. So it's a little bit different than Self-Reliance Festival, but you'll do a lot of hands-on stuff. And I have a couple of surprise guests showing up who are not listed. Information for that is at livingfreeintennessee.com. Just click on workshop and you'll see it.
Awesome.
And my workshop won't be until November. I do one in November every year. So that's far enough out. We can not worry about it. I do have a couple appearances coming up. I'll be at Float Fest. I can't give you dates off the top of my head for these things, but you can look them up. Float Fest, and that's FLOTE, Float Fest from float.app. I will be there for almost all of that event. That's going to be like a big kind of outside Lollapalooza. And then John Bush with Exit and Build. You can look that up online. He's got something going down near Bastrop, and I will be at that as well.
That's in May. I'll be at that one too.
Oh, okay. Come see both of us. You can probably tell them what the dates are. You're better than me at that.
I don't remember the dates of that one.
All right. It's May.
It's May. Late May. Close enough to Self-Reliance Festival. I'll be like there and back. All right, guys. Talk next